This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online learning community jam-packed with classes for the creative mind and for those that are simply curious. If you're unsure of pursuing an education after high school, or maybe, you have finished school and you think you can get a little more out of that brain of yours, or who knows, maybe you're just bored. Skillshare has the means to supply you with more knowledge along with fellow like-minded creatives, all from the safety of your home, which is kind of important, especially as we're heading towards the end of this year. This time I'm going to recommend iPad illustration. Draw a coloring page by Robert Generate III. I've actually been getting into the habit of using my iPad for digital illustration since earlier this year before everything went to hell. And even though I did graduate from the Art Institute of Philadelphia back in 2011, that was back in 2011. I'm always down for a refresher course, and Mr. Generate's 15-minute course was great in getting me back into the groove and teaching me a few tricks with layers that I never considered. Not that I'm a sports illustrator, but there are some skills that can be universally shared across all the arts. And if it's not illustrations or something like that, there's courses for web development, essential tools in writing stories. I noticed a whole bunch of stuff on animation. Who knows, maybe I can talk about that next time. And you can get started with all this too. Skillshare is giving away a free trial of their premium membership to the first 1,000 people who can click the link in the description below to help you explore your creativity. And after that, it's only about $10 a month. Much love to Skillshare for the sponsor, and thank you for helping support this channel. And now on with the show. Hey, how's it going, folks? Sorry for the little wait on this one. No code from Activision this time. I had to get the game at launch like everybody else did. Not that I minded, of course. I had every intent on getting this game for myself because it's Crash Bandicoot 4. But let's get the obvious thing out of the way. It's not really Crash Bandicoot 4, that was Wrath of Cortex. It's even labeled as the 4th game in its Japanese release, with Twinsanity being labeled as the 5th game. But I think Activision and company are now doing everything in their power to pretend every game past the original trilogy didn't happen, or at least don't matter anymore, especially considering that the Insane trilogy was incredibly successful. They have essentially hit the redo button. Folks got the original 3 games back in their minds, they want another go, and you know what? Sure. Don't really have a strong opinion on that. I only just played Wrath of Cortex and Twinsanity for this channel in the past month or so it's not like I have nostalgic memories of Crash's life in the 2000s, but I admit, I do feel a little bad for those games. With this game's subtitle, It's About Time, I expect something like that from a disgruntled Sonic Adventure 3 mod. Don't deny it, it'd make more sense then, and I get it, this title has a double meaning, but it's not as if these games were resounding failures, they just weren't as good. As for these, I don't know, maybe. But I digress. Yeah, I was excited at the mere existence of this game. I wouldn't say to the degree of something like Sonic Mania, but I was hoping that Insane Trilogy would reignite enough interest in the series so that we can get new adventures of the Orange Marsupial with new level concepts using the original 3 games as the basis, or at least Crash 2 and Crash 3. Basically what I want the next 2D Sonic game to be after Mania. I'm sorry for all the Sonic mentions, I just can't help myself in this situation. Anyway, I was down with the idea, but I was initially skeptical on the premise and art direction. Time traveling? If this is following up directly after Crash 3, I mean, we just did that shit. Why do that again so soon after? I know I say that, and this game is decades after Crash 3 was released, so maybe that's what they were banking on. And yeah, I didn't think much of the game's zanier art style, even if Crash Bandicoot by nature was a zany concept. I thought the Insane Trilogy already had a fine enough aesthetic. I thought the environments looked great, the models were cool, just tweaked the lighting on the fur and such and were golden, but they changed it up completely for this, and I guess I was just caught off guard. But you know what, I did warm up to it, and I would like to start with the graphics and presentation for this video. Crash 4 is the best looking Crash game in the series by far, it's not even close if I were to compare. Yes, that is in part due to the power of current hardware if I was just talking raw graphical fidelity, but everything from presentation, sound design, it's all seriously amazing. I was a little concerned that we had a new developer for this game. I thought Vicarious Visions would be a shoo-in for the next game, but instead we got Toys for Bob, the folks responsible for the Spyro Reignited trilogy. It wasn't an immediate condemnation, but a sudden shift in developers was a little off-putting for me, even if Toys for Bob were also responsible for the Switch port of the Insane trilogy. Well, either way, I was worried for nothing. They fucking nailed it and then some. I love the way everything moves in this game. How level aesthetics are varied, the way they pop out. The inverted graphical effects are simply stellar. A little disorienting, sure, but splashing color on these barren lands, a joy to look at. The way the characters animate, I love everyone's expressiveness here, especially from Crash. I've never seen a more heartfelt interpretation of the dude that's in equal parts bumbling but completely endearing. I want to hug the fuck out of this guy. And enemies are just as animated. The chase sequences never felt so threatening. Hell, I even love the snazzy menus, an A+ effort that should seriously be commended. Great job to the whole development team. However, I can't say much for the music at this time. It's only been about a week and most of the tunes didn't catch my ears at first listen, with exceptions to those tracks that use familiar leitmotifs. I will respect them for not reusing the Crash Bandicoot 3 theme for the upteenth time though. I'm going to go a bit into the story here, but since Crash 4 is newly released, I will leave a timestamp to help you skip past that part if you're looking to go in fresh. I don't know why you even click on this video if you're looking to go in fresh, but hey, if you did, I appreciate it anyway. Alright, it's not that there's much story to go into, but getting into my criticisms require that I spoil it, so. As the long-awaited sequel to Crash Bandicoot Warp, Crash 4 picks up almost immediately where the last game left off. So you remember that little bit at the end where Cortex, Entropy, and Uka Uka were sent far into the past because they got caught in that time vortex and they turned into babies playing tug-of-war with Uka Uka's face? Yeah, that was a little strange, but apparently that's a thing of the past now. As Cortex and Entropy are back to being full size, with Uka Uka tapping into all of his power to tear open a quantum rift, allowing our villains to escape. Well, Cortex and Entropy managed to escape. Uka Uka is left to rot, probably for the next game likely. But Aku Aku is quick to notice that something is up and tells Crash to investigate Insanity Peak, where he eventually encounters this new mask named Lani Loli, one of 4 quantum masks that are in charge of keeping things in check when some putz with an ego attempts to take over the dimensions. That said, Entropy is hellbent on taking over all dimensions now that he's escaped, with Cortex and associates following along as lackeys, both eager and reluctant. Together with his sister Coco and the help of the other quantum masks that are eventually gathered, Crash leaps across time and space to thwart whatever nefarious schemes our villains have in store for them. And after the setup, not much happens. Crash Bandicoot games never had much in story, but given the premise, I was expecting a little more with Entropy. I mean, the opening plays him up to be as sinister as possible. There's a menacing vibe there I haven't seen since Uka Uka's debut back in Crash 3 on the PlayStation. But after the opening, the dude is barely an entity until near the end of the game, where it's then revealed that he's teamed up with his female dimensional counterpart to enact his plans. I love to see how that meeting worked out, but it's given next to no focus. But for what it's worth, I love the whole interplay between the two when they actually do get some screen time together, how everyone is grossed out that they tease each other, and I don't know, is that some sort of dimensional masturbation? Either way, Dingodile fucking loves it. Oh man, but yeah, later in the adventure, we get Tawna and Dingodile joining our team. This Tawna, however, is from another dimension where it's straight up confirmed that the Crash and Coco from her world were killed by Entropy and that she's here to make sure history doesn't repeat. That's a bit darker than what I was expecting. And then there's Dingodile, who's decided to retire from a life of villainy and just open up a restaurant, but thanks to Cortex's shenanigans, his diner is blown to hell. He's sucked into a different dimension, now the dude just wants to go home. He also just straight up swears. Bastards! That I was not expecting at all, but I guess Crash Bandicoot is growing up alongside longtime fans. Soon he'll ride a motorcycle and get a gun and fight aliens and... Oh, wait a minute, he's already done all that shit. The chemistry between characters is some of the best stuff I've seen in Crash Bandicoot, on a level beyond from what I enjoyed in Twinsanity, but it's all in bit parts, and I wish there was a little more time spent on development. I love what I see. I love thinking about what could have been. There's still a ton of that trademark whimsy, and yeah, the game is funny as hell. But surprisingly, I found Crash 4 to be one of the more mature games in the series by far. It's definitely edgier than past games, but a good sort of edgy, not desperate to fit in sort of edgy. Nothing really made me wince except for that one moment near the end of the game where you're escaping dimensions, you grab the berries to escape, and then you're suddenly visually assaulted with that Crash face meme from 2017. And I know I'm speaking as someone who made a similar joke in my Insanity review back in 2017, but that was back in 2017. Toys for Bob was a little late to the punch on that one. I'm probably reading too much into this, but as the touted 4th game in the series following a game that was originally released, oh god, nearly 22 years ago, I feel the team wanted to write a game that longtime fans would find pretty gripping, and I did find it gripping, but it's not as developed as I would have liked it to be. It's still a fun story throughout, though. I don't want to make it sound like I'm undermining what's already there. Plenty of laughs, plenty of great moments. Crash 4 delivers on that front. And as for the game itself, Toys for Bob really liked Crash Bandicoot 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a gold cast factory sealed copy of Crash 2 on a pedestal in their employee lounge, because god damn, and this isn't like a Wrath of Cortex just blatantly copying Crash 3 scenario. No, I'm talking more about the spirit of the game. Crash Bandicoot 2, going from the first game, was just a no-nonsense improvement. Take what worked, remove what didn't work, and flesh it out. It made Crash 2 all the better, with the sole exception being the jetpack and the one other thing that I'll get into later. Crash 4 is just as no-nonsense in terms of design. There is very little in gimmicky playstyles. This game is 95% pure platforming. No vehicles, no underwater swimming, no jetpacks, no rollerballs except for this chase level. No real permanent upgrades either, save for one, but that's not the end of the world. Crash 2 didn't have any power-ups and that game was simply fine. Plus, in this game, Crash and Coco have a double jump by default, the best double jump in the series, I think. Doesn't have the odd timing of Crash 3, doesn't cut all your speed to 0 like in Twinsanity, and actually works when I push the button twice, unlike the GBA games. And yes, because I feel the need to mention this, the slide jump is back to being an amazing means of crossing hazards and making long jumps. Fuck, in this game, you can get some serious distance with the amount of hang time you're given sliding off the edge of a platform. It's damn near required for some stages, so it's good to master it as soon as possible. I'm just happy it's back to being awesome again. But as I was saying, Crash 4 is just a whole bunch of platforming challenges, both old and new. Stuff you dealt with before, like chase levels and animal riding sections that I don't think control as well as before, but it's close enough. And then there's new obstacles you haven't experienced yet in Classic Crash, thanks in part to the new Quantum Mask, the closest thing Crash 4 has to a gimmick. For brief intervals in certain stages, you'll have to tap into the power of one of these masks to bypass hazards. For Lonnie Loli, you can cause certain objects to switch between dimensions, making them solid to interact with, or transparent to safely phase through them. Mighty Switch Force is what I kept thinking about during those moments where you had to keep the pace up, switching constantly to stay alive, or to get all the goodies. For me, it was one of the masks I had the least amount of trouble getting into. Akano is basically the Death Tornado spin in temporary power-up form. You spin indefinitely until you decide to stop, and in midair you can glide across large pits to safely cross them. A little unruly on the ground, so I wouldn't recommend doing that, and stay the hell away from TNT crates when using it. I would have liked having the Death Tornado spin as an upgrade like it used to be instead of having to rely on this, so I do think of it as a downgrade, but it functions as designed and even feels good to use in long-winded sections, so it's okay. Kapuna Wa is my favorite of the bunch because she can slow down time for a couple of seconds, making enemies easier to kill, letting you jump over things that are moving too fast, and even letting you safely hop on nitro crates for a split second before they explode. You see, that's way more interesting than just tippy-toeing on top of them. The challenges tied to this mask can get intense, but its easy access ensures that I don't get too flustered, assuming I'm just playing the stage normally, and we'll get there. That just leaves Ika Ika, the one I was dreading the most because I saw what this mask could do in the trailers. It's the anti-gravity mask. You press the button and now you're on the ceiling, and you press it again and now you're on the floor. Anti-gravity, yay! Woo. Look, you know I'm not the biggest fan of this gimmick. I straight up hate anti-gravity shit because I get disoriented easily. And yeah, I know that's the point, but fuck that point. If I'm not having fun, I'm not having fun. Super Mario Galaxy and Galaxy 2 are some of the only games I know to ever do anti-gravity design right, then I'd be awfully hard-pressed to find another shining example. To be fair to the mask, I didn't think it was obnoxious. No, I thought every area it was used was fairly designed and not overly punishing. There were a couple of times where I was fucking crushing my controller with anxiety, but that was more about the circumstance rather than the power-up being unreliable. The mask is fine, the anti-gravity is fine. But all that aside, you'll have your work cut out for you mastering all these new abilities because Crash 4 can get pretty damn hard at points, and I'm talking just casually speaking. Tight jumps, precise platforming, split-second decisions that can make or break you, and obstacles new to the original style like boxes that can spew out fire, swinging vines, and grind rails which I wish were snappier. I'm not a fan of the half-second delay every time you switch from high to low or vice versa, or how tight timing is for swinging left and right. I lost a lot of attempts at box jumps because of panic switching or misreading my depth perception. Fuck, there goes another box. It's time for another death. In this game, you're given the option to choose between modern and retro style, the former giving you infinite lives, with the latter sticking with the life system of the older games. And unless you're a stickler for that archaic shit, you stick with the modern design because the last thing you need is a game over on some of the more rigorous stages. You know what though, kudos to the game for giving us the choice. More games should do that. It's not just Crash and Coco you're controlling through this whole adventure though. A couple of times you're given the option to play as either Tawna, Dingodile, and even Dr. Cortex for reasons that make more sense when you keep playing the game. And they're not too fundamentally different from Crash, but each have a couple of unique characteristics. Tawna can't slide, but she's got an amazing ground pound. She's got this grappling hook that lets you zip across certain targets and break boxes from a distance. Not the most accurate thing to aim. In fact, I would have appreciated a manual lock-on for crates that weren't already programmed to have the button prompt above them, because manually aiming at something with a fixed camera angle was all kinds of awkward. Her wall jump is also sketchy. You can only do it in set locations, but it always feels there's a certain delay to the button press and the action going off itself. But I like Tawna overall. I like the fact that we get to play as her, dimensional counterpart or not. She reminds me a lot of Nina Cortex from Twinsanity. I'm all for fleshing out more characters if it remains fun and consistent to the core design. And this holds true for Dingodile. He can spin like Crash and his gun allows him to glide in the air for a bit and suck things up from a distance. There's no options to shoot fireballs or flamethrowers statically. That's a missed opportunity, I think. But you can weaponize TNT crates and barrels by launching them at enemies and obstacles blocking the path. Given his larger frame, I only found things a little troublesome with tiny platforms and the odd occasion where you had to bounce on boxes for 100% completion. Besides that, he's great. Dr. Cortex is one I wanted to like more, but his stages are no more fleshed out than his solo ventures in Twinsanity. He can shoot with his ray gun to blast open boxes and ignite explosives, and he can also transform enemies into platforms or bouncy blocks to get past stuff. You can't lock onto things with the gun, something I find very strange to omit, so again, when you're trying to manually aim at things, particularly in a 3D space in Cortex's case, it is a little problematic. There's also this admittedly random headbutt he can do that acts as a makeshift dash. It's alright, but I despise that little cooldown animation in the end where he tries to get his bearings. It's a funny visual, but fucks with my positioning so hard when I'm using it above moving platforms, a case where character detail can be more harmful than charming. but compared to Tawna and Dingodile, I feel Cortex's levels got the short end of the stick. All these characters have straightforward level design, I should stress, but Cortex's feel the most one note, or at least the most uninteresting. You make platforms, you dash through this thing, you shoot boxes, you fall down again because of ill timing, functionally sound, but mundane. I just find Tawna's grappling hook and Dingodile's hover vacuum to be more visually striking, I suppose. What's funny is that these guys are all technically optional. After the introductory level, they're not required at all to beat the game, but you know you're about to unlock a new level with them whenever you have those moments in regular play where something happens off screen and Crash and Coco have this confused look to them. But you know what that means, it's time to get a little more perspective, and that's what these levels are. They are previous stages from this character's perspective. You go through their unique section, then you reach the apex, you see the event in action, and then control switches back to Crash or Coco for the remainder of the stage. You remember back in Crash 2 or 3 where you had those specific warps that took you to previous stages, but it put you in a completely new area that had the color gem or those boxes you thought you missed to get the box gem, but then you played the rest of the stage as normal? It's like that. And when I think of it like that, it's traditional, I guess, but a part of me also feels like it's shameless recycling, mainly because, unlike the Crash 2 and 3 examples I mentioned, these are considered completely separate stages with their own box tallies and gems. Level design does change somewhat when you're playing through the Crash and Coco sections again. The bonus rooms in particular probably see the most dramatic change in difficulty, but it is still largely the same stage, so it's like you're playing it twice for the sake of padding, trying to justify spending your money's worth. Crash 4 is a full price game individually. Yeah, it's $60 as opposed to the $40 Insane Trilogy, which was 3 games, and I remember people making a little stink about that, you know. Was this solo title gonna be worth the price tag? However, I'd argue that Crash 4 is actually 2 games. There's Crash Bandicoot 4, the standard Crash game with marvelous visuals, tight controls, great humor, and superb level design, and then there's Crash Bandicoot 4, the collectathon nightmare from hell where more than 70% of the game's 100% completion mentality seem to be directly inspired from Cold Hard Crash, the one level from Crash Bandicoot 2 that nobody fucking liked fully completing. Folks, that kind of shit is all over the place in Crash 4, and let's just remind ourselves, Crash Bandicoot becoming a much harder game when trying to nab all the collectibles is nothing new, but this is on a level far more extreme than the original game, and you remember from that review how much I hated getting 100% in the first Crash game. It's 10 times worse here, for varying reasons, which is impressive, but come the fuck on. First up, the Cold Hard Crash problems, I guess. There are a lot of times where you have to travel to one area of the stage, trigger something to make more boxes appear, then you gotta backtrack to nab those boxes, both against and with the camera. Bonus stages are rife with this, and those gotcha moments when you're punished for activating the exclamation box too soon. And then there's the overabundance of those goddamn hidden boxes. If you're going to jump into this game with the intent of getting everything, assume every vertical stack of boxes has a hidden box on top of it off screen. Oh my god, that happens so often in this game. And then there's those lone individual boxes that, look right there, Jesus Christ, I barely see that son of a bitch. Or this one, which I only caught a glimmer of by complete fucking accident when I was far away enough for the camera to pick it up. Or this one, which I also found by complete accident when I almost fell to my death on this falling platform. This sort of pixel hunting absolutely plagues Crash 4. It also doesn't help that some levels are a little too busy with detail and the boxes just sort of blend in, for as amazing as the game already looks. But if it gets in the way, then it gets in the way. Getting the box gem can be an absolute nightmare, and I know they know this because they threw in a bunch of these other gems that you can nab for the sake of making your journey at least somewhat fulfilling. There are gems given to you by collecting enough Wumper Fruit, a hidden gem that I feel requires less fucking work to find than some boxes do, and then there's a gem for managing to complete a stage with 3 deaths or less. And getting those gems are fine, I think they're a good enough incentive for going the extra mile, but the box gem is a tradition as old as time in Crash Bandicoot, and they went and made it way too arduous, making the game Crash 4 It's About Time to Crash 4 It's About Fucking Time. I'm combing stages left and right. I get to where I think there's a hidden pathway, it turns out I'm right. I get those extra boxes, alright, my sense of curiosity is rewarded. Box gem, here I come. I get to the end, and I'm still fucking short by like 8 or 9 boxes, or worse, 1 box. And this happened so goddamn much that I lost count and interest. It was exhausting. No, I'm gonna be here all fucking month if I try to nab everything for this game. Oh, we got a new stage here. Let me see what that get. Oh my god. 393. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Selene, help me, I'm gonna faint. Come back here! And there's more where that came from, the Flashback Tapes. I would have had the review out early last week if I didn't feel the need to waste more time than needed with these. These unlock special stages where you play as Crash or Coco before they manage to escape Cortex's lab before the events of the first and second game. It's continuity, you love to see it. but flashback tapes require that you reach to where they're located without dying. They're like the death routes of previous games. And early on, hell, even around the midway point, they're relatively comfortable to nab. And then around the second half, these sons of bitches are close to the end of the stage, and fucking up near the end means resetting the whole stage over again. Or you fuck up close to the beginning because now you're flustered and you hit reset, meaning sitting through a 20 to 25 second load screen every single time. And this was played on a PS4 Pro. I can't imagine how worse it is on standard hardware. These can be Wrath of Cortex on PS2 bad, and it was a little off-putting. Hopefully something that could be fixed in a patch. I recall Insane Trilogy having a similar issue at launch that was later fixed, so maybe it's only a matter of time. Anyway, you grab these and you unlock those Cortex levels. These are like the Cortex and Embryo bonus stages from Crash 1 on steroids. Precise box jumping is the entire premise here, with just one wrong move meaning your death. They also come with their own unique hazards, like arrow boxes that turn into nitro crates only after a few bounces. So when you're trying to grab the platinum medal, where you need to break all the boxes, you need to do this deliberately so that those nitro boxes count when you set off the nitro detonator. That's some pretty sneaky shit, but I ended up really liking these stages, which is why I kept going after the flashback tapes like a damn idiot. I shouldn't have. I knew I was only going to spend a minute or two talking about it on this video for something I wasted 5 to 7 hours on trying to finish, but I did it. I got all the tapes, I got the platinums and all of them, I unlocked the general's outfit. Please validate my suffering. And there's still more collectibles. The relics from time trials, complete with sapphire, gold, and platinum tiers. There's the color gems, which if you played Crash 2, oh man, I hope you're prepared to go through some serious shit to find and grab these. There's also these perfect relics that you can nab by managing to complete the stage in one life while grabbing all the gems except the hidden one. Going for that old school Crash 1 challenge that we've long since moved away from because nobody liked it then, so why the fuck will we like it now? After a specific point, you unlock inverted stages, which are the same stages only flipped horizontally, and they have this strange filter that are admittedly very cool to see in action, but they have their own gems to collect. What the fuck? There's so much shit in this game. I mean, there's a surplus of extra costumes you can earn by collecting enough gems in a stage, and the cool thing is that it counts both this and the regular stage's gems cumulatively, so if you're hell-bent on getting a certain costume, but don't want to rip your fucking hair out trying to get every gem in a normal stage, just make up for it in the inverted stage, and soon you'll be rocking those caveman duds or the biker outfit from Crash 3, one of my personal favorites. Legit, I think the costumes were a great idea. I'm down with future games bringing this back because something as novel as playing a level in different clothes can go a long way, even if it causes Crash's bottom teeth to clip through his jawline. And let's just see if Activision has anything to say about Toys for Bob's declaration that Crash 4 will have no microtransactions. I'm sorry, but after the Nitro Fuel debacle, I'm allowed to be skeptical. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. But as I said earlier, Crash Bandicoot 4 is 2 games. The casual, straightforward experience that I think is one of the best Crash games ever developed. I put it up there with Crash 2 and Crash 3, and I'm completely serious. The stages and themes are greatly varied with a ton of unique obstacles and means of putting your skills to work. They ooze personality, they look absolutely amazing, and the new masks are great to utilize. Yes, it is a little more difficult than the other games, but nevertheless fulfilling to finish and continue along. And then there's the 100% journey, which is a long, excruciating slog that I think went completely overboard given the sheer number of things to get and the process required to collect them. Objectively, I believe Crash 4 to be well worth its price tag, but subjectively, I think that extra content is fucking dumb, and one day, maybe one day, I'll make a live stream series out of it. God knows you folks love seeing me suffer grabbing all those emblems in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. 100% for this game seems perfect for that kind of shit, so I guess in some way, that gives the game value as well. If you're still on the fence, then I say just wait for a price drop before playing it. But I do recommend that you play it because I'm serious, just playing the game stage to stage, not giving a flying fuck about 100% completion, this is a fantastic platformer. One of the best in Crash Bandicoot, lots of meat with very little fat. If this is what's in store for Crash's future, I am all in that bitch. Just tone down all this shit next time, please. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. It's October. I feel I should do something a little more seasonal, something a little more appropriate. A lot of places you can go with that. If you haven't already, the trailer for this year's Extra Life Charity Marathon went up about a couple of days ago. We're playing Pac-Man games for 24 hours straight to raise some money. You can catch that video on the card up top for more details. And as always, thank you all for watching. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask if you decide to go outside. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.